ES Audio.
You might not think about your local florist as being a tech company, but of course it is. And yeah, it's not Meta, but that handy card machine they're using for sales, that website that's taking their online orders, how they make their stock purchases, it's all tech. But if all those SMEs in Britain are now all tech companies, what does that mean for the networks that provide the services?
A flower shop, a restaurant, a bike shop, they're all digital. So the demand for digital technology to always work, and also to be able to swap out digital technology if in the future something better comes along, is really important. So they need a partner that can anticipate what those needs are.
Bas Burger is the CEO of BT Business, which only officially launched in April. It's a merging of the telecom giant's formerly separate global and enterprise units, and it has an enormous job to do in very little time.
Where we had the revolution of the internet, after which we had the revolution of the smartphone. Now we're going to get the revolution of automation powered by AI, artificial intelligence.
I'm David Wilson from the Evening Standard. We're going to be talking to Bas about the challenges faced by BT businesses. Where do you even start when you're taking on something as big as this? And why would you want to take that responsibility in the first place? But when we meet at their HQ in London's Whitechapel, the first thing I want to know is, something like BT Business, which employs 24,000 people, is a huge undertaking for a company. So why does it need to exist?
If you look at BT, we're servicing consumers and we're servicing business customers. So we have a network that, during the day, during the week, is being used by business customers, and in the evening and in the weekends, most consumers are on the network. Yes. So from a logical standpoint, you would organize it in that way. Now, the reason it was different previously is because we had a business-to-business business in the UK, servicing these customers, and we had one that serviced customers globally. Yeah. They were distinctly different businesses, set up in a different way. But over the past 5 years, I had the privilege of leading the global organization. We have restructured it in a way that we are focused much more on a set number of customers, and we are solving the problem, which is pretty much the same problem we're solving for business-to-business customers in the UK. So therefore, we decided to put the two businesses together to simplify and to scale some of the things that we're doing in the company to benefit both organizations.
So what is the problem being faced by business customers today?
Yeah.
Let's put the consumer ones to one side. That's me not being able to get my Netflix and that thing spinning around. But for business customers, what is the problem?
It is actually not very different to what you just described, David, because
they are not watching Netflix all day.
They're not watching Netflix, but they are using applications that make their business efficient and make them competitive in their individual markets. So it's the same as you use Netflix, you have it on your phone, on your iPad. It doesn't really run on your phone or your iPad. It runs somewhere in the cloud. Mm-hmm. Businesses do that as well. They use applications to communicate with their people in the organization, to communicate with their customers. They use applications to run their supply chains, to send out bills, etc. And all these applications, they either sit in their own data centers, sometimes under their desk on a PC, but moreover, it sits in the cloud. Yeah. So connectivity is extremely important to always work for organizations to be relevant and to continue to exist. I always use the analogy, I've been in telecommunication quite some time, but if I were to talk to somebody who runs a factory, for example, in the beginning of the 2000s, and connectivity would not be there, the factory would still pretty much run, and they would call us after a day or so and say, could you please bring the phones back up? Today, if that happens, the factory will probably stop working after an hour, because they need so much information and applications and data to run a factory. Machines talk to applications, people need to access information. If connectivity goes, none of that digital technology is available. So essentially, that's the problem that we as an organization need to solve for businesses, is deliver that rock solid foundation that they can access any digital technology today and in the future.
But that is quite a responsibility to take on your shoulders, isn't it? Why would you want to do that? You're in a position where if something goes wrong, it's you that goes.
Exactly. And it's because we are good at it. We are in the UK, as an example, we obviously have built and we own a lot of the fixed network, and obviously we have the best mobile network in the country as well. And best is qualified by reach. Is it available in most places in the country? If it's there, does it give you the bandwidth you need to do what you need to do? If that's the case, is it up all the time? Or is it sometimes down and sometimes up? So we call that performance and resilience. And we are really good at that. So because companies need that capability, we are the ones best positioned to deliver that to them. So we want to have that responsibility. But David, you're absolutely right. I also personally feel that as an enormous responsibility, because, this digital foundation, this rock solid digital foundation in a country like the UK, in any country, by the way, is going to be incredibly important for the economy to work, for the country to evolve, and that responsibility is, and I feel that personally as well. It's enormous.
You do. Yeah. But okay then, so you have that as a priority to create this rock solid foundation. How do you make it rock solid? How do you say this cannot fail? Here's what we're going to do to make sure it doesn't.
Yeah. Well, first off, you start with customers. So you ask customers, what is it that you want to do in your individual market? Not today, but in the future. So back to your question earlier, what's the problem you're solving for? Actually, you're solving for a problem in the future. I don't know if you know Wayne Gretzky, but he always said, you skate to where the puck is going. He was an ice hockey player from Canada. And that's what we're doing. We're skating to where the puck is going, not where the puck is today. So we're trying to solve problems for customers in the long-term future. So we ask them, what is it that you think? And sometimes they do know, sometimes they don't know. But one thing that's for sure is that we see that digital technology in general is going to solve most problems that customers have in the future. And most companies will be run as a digital company. It's no longer the case that it's only banks or insurance companies or tech companies that are digital companies, but a flower shop, a restaurant, a bike shop, they're all digital. So the demand for digital technology to always work, and also to be able to swap out digital technology if in the future something better comes along, is really important. So they need a partner that can anticipate what those needs are.
But so much of this, the way you're describing it, is gazing into a crystal ball, isn't it? You can't know where you're going to be in 10 years. But I guess, that's a good milestone to reach. You have to know where it's going to be in 10 years.
Yeah, but what you do know is what's definitely not going to change. You do know that customers always would like more bandwidth, not less, because of all the technology that's coming. What you do know is they want more availability, not less. You know that, for example, where we had the revolution of the internet in the beginning of the century, after which we had the revolution of the smartphone. Now we're going to get the revolution of automation, particularly powered by AI, artificial intelligence, and Gen AI is part of that. We know that is going to accelerate the need for companies to be able to have big data sets available at their fingertips, and that will require the network to do a lot more than the network can do today. So we know all of these things are going to happen. Exactly how, we don't know. But we know we need to get bandwidth available, we need to get availability up, and we need to get predictability up. Because it's not everything needs to be available all the time. You just need to make sure that you understand which applications for which companies need to be available all the time.
Are we as a country ready for that, for this upsurge, this demand that we're going to be placed on bandwidth? If everybody, even a florist, is basically a tech company, can this country handle that?
Absolutely. Look, I think what you need is an infrastructure that can handle that. We are investing about 12 billion to fiber up the UK at the moment, consumers and businesses. Absolutely necessary. You could argue we are slightly late from a European and potentially also a global context, but we are leapfrogging at the moment. We've learned from a lot of others. We are currently building extremely fast, and yes, the UK is going to be absolutely ready for this. And I think also, historically, you might know this. I find this fascinating. Obviously, not being from the UK, UK has been also the first country in the world to have a telco network. Most of the copper that's in the ground in the UK that we are taking out, or some of it, was actually built 120, 130 years ago.
Wow, we were really far ahead.
And, exactly. And I can say we here in this country were the first ones to use a telegraph, so we are now implementing fiber with exactly the same objective, is to make sure that we allow businesses in the UK to flourish and to use the next gen technology at a global scale. Because it's not the UK only. You work as a company here, even if you're a florist, you will use applications that do not sit in a public cloud in the UK but elsewhere.
Why do you think the UK... You said some people would argue we were slightly late in developing this. What do you think happened? Why do you think that? What do you think happened there?
I couldn't necessarily comment on exactly what happened there, but when you're ahead in something, you sometimes stay ahead and then other people overtake you, and you then need to leapfrog the others. And I think that's a little bit what happened here. Yeah.
That's just innovation, though.
It's innovation. Yeah. It's also the willingness to invest. It has to do with how you. It's timing as well. When do you think it's necessary to have this infrastructure ready? Some are too early, some are too late. Always with hindsight, it's easy. But I think we're on time. I think we are building a lot, and we're not the only ones building in the UK, as you know. On fiber, we're building 5G networks all across the UK. There's also multiple providers that do that. And we'll have to see what applications and what usages are going to come to the fruition in the future. But the infrastructure will absolutely be ready in the UK.
Yeah, actually, you spoke about other people doing this. This is an extremely competitive field, and it's exploded relatively, really, really quickly, hasn't it? Lots of people, lots of great companies that have appeared. How do you stay ahead of that? How do you divide the competition, step ahead of that?
Just focus on what you do well. Don't branch out in things that you don't do well. This is for any company. You need to figure out, if you build a strategy for a company, as we just discussed, I did for BT Business, you need to figure out what we said. First of all, what is the problem you're fixing in the future for customers? Then you need to figure out, why am I the best one to fix that problem? And then you need to figure out, how am I going to make money fixing that problem? If any of those questions is answered with no, then don't go into that market. So for us, that means that the problem of delivering a rock-solid foundation by which all businesses, small to big, can flourish, why BT can deliver that has to do with the fact that we have to have the skills and experience, but we also need to have the technology and the scale to do it. And this is pretty much a scale game as well. If you have a lot more customers using the same type of network, obviously your unit cost goes down. But traditionally, or at the moment, it's also a data play. So the more data we get from a bigger group of customers, the better we can predict what we need to do to bring availability up. So it's a scale game, and we're very good at that, and we have a lot of experience in it, and that is where we put all our investment money in the short run and in the long run, and we don't go beyond that.
But how much of an advantage is there? Because BT as a company has been around for quite a long time, but all of this is new. Yeah. So is that history relevant at all to future success, or do you come in and go, right, we're starting from scratch here?
Yeah, relationships with customers continue. And the problem we're solving for customers is not necessarily that different from what we solved with old technology and new technology. We just have to do it with new technology, and we need to do it faster and better. But we have relationships with customers everywhere. We know what makes companies tick. We know individuals in companies. We know how they're organized. We know how their processes run. So we are very good at anticipating what is the need that they have going forward. And we need to be humble and honest about why are we better at solving that, and when do we need to take a step back and let somebody else solve that problem, because we know we're not the best at it.
Right, I'm going to step back for a couple of minutes and let people who are better at adverts than me do some adverts. You should have a listen to them. Somewhere in there might be the future. Who knows? What we do know is that How to Be a CEO brings you insights from some of the world's top companies every fortnight. And if you follow on your podcast provider, you'll never miss an episode. So while you're listening to these, hit that button.
When this position was created, did you pursue it, or were you offered it and were kind of like, I don't know if I want to do that? This job exists, I'm going to do it, or I don't know.
Well, many times in my career, and I would say also to many of your listeners, you will find yourself in a position where people offer you things because they've seen you do things you do really well, and people think, hey, David's a good guy, maybe we should ask him to do this particular task. That's what happened here as well. Basically, there was an idea to put both businesses together. Obviously, I helped with the idea because I was running one of the two businesses, and and it was offered to me, and I find it an extreme big honor and huge responsibility to do this. But so I grabbed it with both hands. But you'll find that most of these things are offered to you. It's you can still pursue it, but chances you get it are higher if they offer it to you.
And what was the first thing you did on day one when this was all done and gone, right, this is it, this is where it starts? What did you do first?
Talk to our customers and talk to our people a lot. Ask questions. As long as you can, I would advise anybody starting any new role, not only a CEO role, is to make sure that you ask questions and do not give answers as long as you possibly can. So I did that. I spent a lot of time with customers. For me in the UK part was fairly new, and the SME market, the small and medium enterprise market, was new. So I spent a lot of time talking to customers and talking to people that knew what the problems were in the market that we needed to solve. And obviously to our people. We are a people business, so we are very, very much dependent on the skill sets and the knowledge our people have that deliver the technology. So I spent a lot of time with our people here in the UK in particular.
And when you, after talking to those people, did you sort your priorities by, okay, this is the biggest thing we have to do, or by, I can do this right now?
A little bit of both. Look, as a CEO, you have a few tasks, but the biggest task is to set a direction, to make sure you focus on the long run. So with all the listening that I did, I tried to figure out, and also talking with all my colleagues and the people, try to figure out what is the direction that we're going to go to in the long run. You need to have a long-term focus, particularly in our business. Our business is we just spoke about the network being built 130 years ago. The fiber we put in the ground and the antennas we're putting up today, they're going to be there decades from now, long after I'm gone. So you have to have a long-term strategy. What are you going to do with that? So that's where I spend most of my time, is to say, what is the direction of the company? What are we going to do? But moreover, what are we not going to do?
So you've set the direction, and how many people work at BT Business?
24,000.
That's a lot of people that need to follow that direction. How do you get them to follow you?
First of all, by making the direction simple and easy to understand from a customer point of view, from a people point of view, from an investor point of view. So from all the stakeholders involved, and repeat it as many times as you can. And also from a people perspective, 24,000 people, engage them in the journey. Mm-hmm. Be very predictable in what does it mean for a person in a particular job today, but what does it also mean in the long run? And we do need skills in the long run that we don't have today to get to that direction. We also have skills today that we don't need in the future. And you have to be honest, and you have to be open, and you have to be consistent in talking about what is the long-term strategy, what is the direction of the company, what do we do for customers, set milestones in between, and then follow through.
Just listening to you, I was thinking about your own background. You started in marketing, didn't you?
No, actually, I started in sales.
In sales and marketing. It's the same department.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah. Well, yeah.
Most of the technology you're working with now probably didn't exist. Did you ever expect to be in this kind of a position where you were always thinking this, I'm going to work in an innovative company and I'm never going to know what I'm going to be doing next?
No, not really. No, I must say, I could say I predicted this, but no, I didn't. I didn't predict anything that happened in my career, to be honest. I did pick to work in telecommunications early in my career. I started my career actually in a software company here in the UK briefly. And I'm going to show my age now, but that was the time where you sent floppy drives to customers if you wanted to sell software. And then you send them a letter to say you're allowed to copy this 100 times, and then you send them a bill for 100 licenses. But I very quickly saw when I was working there that those floppies were going away, and it was more, over telecommunication lines, you could download software. And I thought that industry is going to be the telco industry. That's where I want to work. So when I graduated, that's where I started. So, but other than that, my career has been a complete string of moments where people have asked me to do other stuff because they thought I could do it.
Have you always enjoyed those other things? Have you ever gone there, oh, maybe I shouldn't have done this actually?
With hindsight, sometimes, yeah, but I've thoroughly enjoyed all the roles. But there were roles that I thought, I'll give you an example. I started my career in KPN. I'm from the Netherlands. And KPN is the incumbent telco in the Netherlands. And it was in the beginning of the 2000s, they offered me a job which actually had the title of a CEO. It was a CEO job of a unit within KPN that did a lot of the enterprise environments at the time. And I was 31. It was a very large organization. Average age was very high. And we had to reorganize and restructure that whole business.
That's tough for a 31-year-old.
It was way too early. With hindsight, back to your question, did you ever think of... That was a moment afterwards I thought, well, the people that asked me to do this, probably they took a risk, let's put it like that. And it turned out well eventually, but boy, did I have to learn fast.
Would you take a risk like that? Would you put someone young who you think is talented into that kind of position?
Yes, I would actually. And I think with hindsight, I thank the people that did that in KPN back in those days a lot, because they were taking a risk, but on the other hand, they were watching my back. I got all the support I needed. They allowed me to make some mistakes. As long as they saw me learn quickly, catch the mistakes, don't do them consistently. So yes, I would definitely take that risk, but I would make sure that there was a support system in place to make sure that this person would be successful. Yeah.
What's ahead for BT Business? Where are you going? What's next?
Well, we're actually going into a very, very exciting period. Now that we are in the process of putting these businesses together, because obviously we're still working on the integration of two massive companies, we are very, very focused on delivering this solid foundation for customers. And I think with the trends we see in the markets for the demand that we just talked about is increasing so much. We are engaging with many, many different customers at a level that is on true partnership. I think we're going to be able to accelerate the way in which we provide our services, the way we migrate our customers off from old services onto new services. Consumers have heard about that in the UK, and businesses as well, is moving away from copper onto fiber type services, moving away from analog to digital, moving away from 3G to 4G to 5G. All these migrations, we are fully up and running and able to do that. And I think with that responsibility we just spoke about, we also have a team that can actually deliver that. So the next thing would be to execute on that. We've set the strategy, we've set the direction, we have the people, we have the products. It's now up to us to execute. And I think the timing is 100% right for it.
One thing I always ask whenever we do an interview with a CEO, a successful person, I ask them to go all the way back to their very first job interview. First job interview you ever had, not necessarily at a big company, but you may have been for a newspaper round. Can you remember what your first ever job interview was and what happened?
Yeah, I do actually. Well, I worked in a pancake restaurant, and I guess I washed the dishes. So I guess they asked me if I was okay with working late and cleaning up afterwards. And when I said yes, I had the job. So that's probably not the very first job.
Not so different to now, actually.
Yeah, no, exactly. That was a good job. But listen, I think the job interview that I had for the software company I was referring to, that was a sales job. So that was a contact center, and I had zero experience. And they didn't really want to hire me. They said because I was in the Netherlands and I really wanted to work for a company in the UK. And they basically said, look, you need to do this job interview face to face. We don't do this over the phone. So I know you're not here. So sorry, we can't give you the job. So I said to them, well, when do you want me to be there? And they said, well, the job interview is tomorrow 9:00, and it was somewhere in the evening or something. And I was a student. Obviously, I had no money whatsoever. So I said, okay, I'll be there. If I'm there, can I then have and they said they called my bluff. They said, yeah, sure, yeah. If you be there, then. So I scraped my last guilders at the time, not euros yet, from the bank account. I took a ticket, last flight out, slept on the airport, and then went to the job interview at 9. And they were so impressed, I actually showed up, that they said, okay, we'll give you a shot at this. So I got the job.
That was Bas Burger, CEO of BT Business. For more interviews, news and analysis, head to standard.co.uk/business or pick up the Evening Standard newspaper. How to Be a CEO will be back in 2 weeks. We'll see you then.